played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
Right, welcome back to Slice. This is episode 6, and we're breaking new ground this week, me and Sam, because we got our first guest on the show. Welcome, Laurie Canter. I must say, Laurie, we booked you before the win in Bahrain, so it's good timing on our part. Hopefully, good timing on yours as well.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys. Honored to be on the new pod. I think if obviously it leads to me playing like I did the last few weeks, booking in a podcast with you, then I'll have to come on regularly if you have me.
Absolutely. Now we did start this, Sam, last week with an experimental song lyrics introduction. We've abandoned it after 1 week. It was awful. It was awful. It made me squirm, and it was my idea. So none of that. We're going to go straight into the review because also we want to have plenty of time to ask Laurie some questions. So are we starting with Phoenix, right? And Thomas Dietrich?
We are, yeah. I mean, I watched it to the end. It was great to see Dietrich win because so many questions have been asked, haven't they, about his ability in contention. And ultimately, came down, back nine, he barely flinched, did he? And he stood up there on 16. He hit it to 2 feet, and it was game over. And yeah, it was really impressive for his first win in a significant event, a boisterous event. And yeah, it was great to see. What do you think, Ben?
Well, that shot on 16, I mean, that will go down as one of the best shots of the year, I think. Certainly the best shot of his career. Do you know Thomas, Laurie? I mean, because it's kind of easy to see some parallels with you, right? Like someone who was very, very clearly very talented from an early age and was sort of booked for multiple wins and whatever. And for Thomas, it just hadn't worked. He's a bit unlucky in Scotland a few years ago, no doubt about that, but he let a few chances go as well. And then all of a sudden yesterday, on a leaderboard that had like Jordan Spieth and Scheffler, and he just stepped up there and hit the shot.
Yeah, I know Thomas, Tom pretty well. His wife Sarah, and they've also got 2 daughters, almost exactly the same age as us. So we know him, we get on really well with him. He's a great guy. He's actually same golf club here up the road. We play a bit together. So yeah, I was watching last night in the airport in Qatar, and I was delighted to see him win. And he won in style, really, like the way I think obviously I think once he got through 15, it felt like he had the tournament kind of more or less wrapped up. I mean, we all know how difficult it is, but it was nice to see him sort of sprint over the line with that finish. It was pretty classy.
Well, I wanted to ask actually, Laurie, you mentioned the fact that you've both got two young kids. Is there, there's this thing, I don't know, you've heard about it called nappy factor. Do you believe in this? Because it's interesting that the two of you both got your 2 young kids, and you've sort of broken through at a similar sort of age, and with that behind you.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I think it probably is a real thing. But I think anyone who has kids, like for me, the shock. There's a lot of great things that come with kids. One of the things you have to adjust to, like straight away, is all the time you lose, and I think you realise how. Kind of before how selfish you were. Not selfish, I don't know if that's the right word, especially the sport we play, because we're innately selfish, and then all of a sudden there's someone who requires your time and effort to kind of keep you going. So I'd say you just have to be a bit more efficient with your time, and that probably can help people. It's helped me, I would say. I guess you'd have to ask Tom if he feels the same. I feel like he's been on a really kind of solid, steady upward trajectory. It's just, I guess, he hadn't won an event, so there was that kind of question mark in a lot of people's eyes. But he was, to me, outside looking in, clearly improving every year as a golfer. So it didn't surprise me to see him win a massive tournament like the Waste Management.
Yeah, and it's be interesting to see where he goes from here, because obviously he's got all the talent to win lots more. And do the floodgates open now? He's got that that belief that he can win. Maybe a similar story with yourself, Laurie. Obviously, you won last year and you won pretty quickly your second one. So will the second one come in the next few months, in the next year? That'd be interesting to see.
We'll
Yeah.
get to the Ryder Cup, won't we? But it'd be a shame if friends turn enemies here, because you could all of a sudden you're both in the picture, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's well and truly in the picture. He plays full time on the PGA Tour in America. He's had a lot more exposure. I still feel like I'd need a really good summer's golf playing in Europe to kind of put myself in those plans, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was there at Bethpage. He's got like a tremendous all round game. I thought he putted beautifully yesterday as well, which is the way he hold out, hit a couple of long putts a little bit by, hold out really nicely, which I think's obviously massively important in that kind of Ryder Cup. When your match play tends to be the putts you have are for halves or for wins, aren't they? So that kind of every putt feels even more important than perhaps stroke play. So I think if he keeps trending like that, he could have a pretty amazing year. He's in all the majors now, so it'll be exciting to watch as a sort of friend and someone who has admired his game for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to Qatar. I mean, firstly, Laurie, I just wanted to ask about your performance, because I woke up on Friday morning, checked the leaderboard, and you were a shot clear, and I was thinking he's just going to stroll to a second victory, and then I think you made 4 bogeys in a row, I think, on the back nine, and then that was kind of it. And I wanted to ask, was that like mental?
Brutal, absolutely brutal.
I mean,
Sounds like you woke up as I fell asleep, really. So it was yeah, it was strange. From personal perspective, a strange week. I had a lot of people sort of saying like rest up and after Bahrain, but to be honest, because I felt like I don't want to say I backdoored Bahrain, but I didn't sleep on the lead. Never really in the top 5 the whole tournament. I was kind of like edge of the top 10, and I was quite frustrated because I played nicely on the weekend there without really kind of, I felt like getting that mid-60s score I needed to get myself in the picture. So I actually turned up in Qatar quite like I felt rested, ready, wanted to play well, played nice, really nicely Thursday. Friday was tough conditions. I just hit a couple of poor shots, three putted a couple of times, and that golf course is a little bit like that. You've got to really hang in. There's some very, very tough holes, and a lot of the scoring chances. You've got to wedge it close, putt well, got to deal with the wind. The greens got firmer. It became a really good test. I just didn't, from kind of after that little Friday mini crisis. I couldn't really. I felt like I was chasing to get back in the tournament. That can be quite a difficult place to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was interesting to see Haotong win again, because, I mean, obviously, again, supremely talented player. And I kind of look back through his last few years, and 2021, I think he made 3 cuts the entire year, and then he won again in 2022. Then 2023, he only made 2 cuts the entire year, and then he won again. Obviously, he's just won again now. So he's very much, very sort of feast or famine type player. Do you know Haotong well?
I wouldn't. I don't like to speculate too much. I know that a lot of the Asian players and the Chinese players in particular had a really tough time in COVID, just with the way COVID restrictions kind of varied around the world. If you contrasted America to China, they took completely different approaches with lockdowns and access. And I think, probably for him, maybe those results in and around those times reflected him maybe not being able to get back into his family or his coaches or whatever it might have been. There was sort of 2-week quarantine, and that kind of stuff to just go home, which is, for him at the time was probably very kind of difficult for his career to deal with. So I wonder if that little slump was that. But yeah, he's definitely blows hot and cold, and really, it's probably. I think you, as a professional golfer, as much as that's up and down and tough to deal with, that's I think you want to feel like you've got the game to go and win. And from his perspective, he knows if he turns up 2, 3, 4 times a year with his A game, he obviously can win the tournament or come very close. And kind of, if you look at the world rankings and if you look at how people's careers evolve, you have to have that in you. Otherwise, it's It can be, churning out solid results. 30th, 40th is, fine, but it doesn't actually kind of probably elevate and push you on. So, and you see a lot. You do see different sorts of players do different, have different approaches to it. He definitely seems like that guy who he's not scared, is he? Like when he turns up, he's won some big events. I think when he won, I looked back through his career and he played his first. I think he's played his first event on tour when he was 14 or something, 15. Turned pro when he was 16. So he's actually, I'd say, even though he's still not even 30, but he's kind of a veteran already.
He's been around a while, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to see how his career's evolved. And yeah, he's probably another player, like, if he got his PGA Tour card or had that kind of springboard and could set himself up and focus on that. It would be interesting to see how he'd get on in America, really being able to devote his time and energy to that full time. Which I guess he's got a good chance now.
Yeah, totally. I should mention before we ask some other questions, just briefly mention our player tracker. So Ben and I do a player tracker, Laurie, and my player is Elvis Smylie, being a lefty myself. Unfortunately missed the cut this week. I think I've determined that maybe desert golf doesn't quite suit him. I could be wrong, but your pick, Ben, Angel Ayora, a T14, pretty good.
Yeah, back on the bike after a bit of a disappointment in Bahrain. He sort of crept to 14th, didn't he, with a good final round. I think he must have been like 30th going into that. But look, it's another check, isn't it? It's another step towards, like, the first goal, I suppose, for him is make sure you lock up your car for next year and then try and contend and then maybe by the end of the year win. I mean, it's really hard for rookies to win in their first season, right? Yeah, we shouldn't take that for granted. I remember Matt Fitzpatrick, his first season, he won the British Masters, didn't he, in like September or something like that. But it was one step at a time, and I think that'd be the same for him. And he's so young. I mean, you mentioned, Laurie, that Hao Tong turned pro at 14. Ayora didn't. I think he was 19 or 18, but even that's pretty rare. He could so easily have gone and played for his pick of colleges, I guess, but he's gone the other way, and so far so good, I guess.
Yeah, he look. I mean, I've only watched him on the range, but he looks good. I don't think he's going to have to worry about getting his card next year. I think he'll be all right.
There we go. Re-endorsement for my player tracker pick, Sam. So
absolutely. Yeah. I noticed that Laurie didn't say anything about Elvis there, but anyway.
Well, he's pretty won, so he's fine.
That's true. Yes, of course. Yeah. The fancy game, we've sort of treading water a little bit, haven't we, Ben? I mean, Lewis Blaine, I should mention, is still leading. He's got a bit of a lead at the top. So Lewis is looking good to join us for a game of golf at the end of the year. At the moment, that's our prize, by the way, Laurie. It's a great prize, isn't it?
Early days in the podcast, you get around a golf with us too, around a municipal in Oxfordshire, but this time next year and all
that. Ben is you're 46th in the league. I'm 85th. So yeah, it wasn't a great week. Although my pick Martin Coover at one point looked like he might go close. He was I think in the end he finished tied 5th, I think. So that was all right.
Yeah, he looks good as well, doesn't he? He's another. We talked about him last week, Laurie. But I mean, French golfers in general, like there seem to be a real group of them. And I know sometimes when one of them wins, you see that collection. At the 18th green, I don't know if other nationalities are better at it or there are just too many English golfers where it's not practical. But who, if you don't mind asking, who was there for you on 18 in Bahrain? Was there any? If there was nobody, I apologise for asking.
I just had the Crown Prince waiting for me, which was more than enough for me to do. No, it's a good question, to be honest. No, I didn't have a whole lot of lads there. There was I think Bahrain, because it was, what was it, third? For some guys, it was the 4th event in a row. I know a lot of guys were getting out there pretty quick on Sunday to either head to Dubai, do a couple of days, or to go on to Qatar. So, no, I saw a couple of people on the hotel bar afterwards and stuff, some mates, but it wasn't. I think the kind of way the tour goes now is people always have an eye on the next week until you get these like genuine little slots for breaks. So. Barely no mates, really. Just me and the Crown Prince, and
really,
that was it.
You needed to win this week, really, in Qatar, and then people would have had an off week, so they would have stuck around for a bit longer, and you would have been able to properly celebrate.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's my excuse. Yeah, or just everyone's was keeping away from me. Who knows?
My wife always asks me what I said, like that I shouldn't have said, or what's gone wrong in these podcasts. And today I'll be able to say, well, I asked Laurie Canter who hung around after he won, and the answer was actually absolutely nobody. Sam, move us on.
Yes, well, yeah. So we have many questions of different topics, Laurie. But I wanted to start off with just your recent win in Bahrain. And my question initially is, having won for the first time last year, when you were sort of in contention, and I know you were wasn't like you were sleeping on a lead, as you mentioned, but when you were were you aware that you were in contention firstly, coming down the stretch in Bahrain?
Yeah, I just felt like I was maybe 6 groups out from the lead, and um, that Sunday I played by far the best I had all week. I'd actually been really scratchy on Thursday and Friday, but scored really well, and then Saturday played a little better. Sunday played really really well, but just couldn't really get any putts to go. Was just probably trying to force it a bit, and then. I think I birdied the 14th, which par 5. It's downwind, kind of I don't want to say an easy hole, but a great chance of making a 4. And then, yeah, and I think at that point I was 1 behind or level with Pablo, but I knew he had 2 par 5s to come, so I felt like I needed to birdie at least one of the last 3, and didn't do it. So I think just in the experience I've had, it's a kind of easier mindset to get your body and your mind behind chasing someone than, or I think you maybe have natural front runners, or people who are extremely comfortable with that. But I think it's always good to kind of feel like you're always pushing to try and attack and be positive on the golf course. And actually, maybe that's one of the things you've got to do even when you're in the lead. You all of a sudden you think, well, I'm at 10 under par, I need to get to 12, I need to get to 14. You hear kind of Rory and Tiger when they've talked about winning tournaments in the past. Tiger especially about, he's obviously reframing and resetting his own kind of expectations or whatever that he wants to achieve and kind of leave the field behind. But yeah, so I felt like I was in contention, but to be honest, when I finished, I thought that's going to be short. So it was. I was so excited to get in the playoff that when I, I guess I could kind of positively frame that going into the playoff. Whereas perhaps the 2 guys, certainly Pablo, I've been in that position where you end up playing off for something when you feel like you probably should have had it won. Yeah. And it's just I guess a different mindset. And also I know how important winning is now. Like it is so important to your career and to kind of elevating yourself and in terms of your rankings and the opportunities you get and all that sort of stuff. So I'm more aware of it, so I'm probably more hungry for it. It's one of those things you've got to do and experience and get those feelings. And so yeah, I was on the range with my caddy when we knew we were doing. I was like, I'm gonna fucking win this tournament. Was kind of what I said, to be honest. Like, like in terms of this, we're going to go out and win this tournament rather than wait for anything. So yeah, it was good to go out. I mean, you can think and say stuff like that all the time. It doesn't come off, but that particular time, yeah, it was probably good to go out with that expectation and play and hit good shots and play well.
You did win the tournament as well when you went out there. I mean, I was going to ask a little bit later actually, but I might as well ask now. I mean, I always remembered and I'm sorry, you might not even remember it, but your approach shot to the par 3 in Italy when you lost by 1 to Ross McGowan. And I was sort of going to ask you, where that ranked, because at the time I'd imagine that must be one of the best shots you've hit. Is it fair to say that number 1 now will be that second shot into 18 in Bahrain? I mean, it's only a 9-iron or a wedge or whatever, but to hit it that close, Pablo in the water, you pretty much just said, right, this is mine now.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when I guess at the time you're just focused on what you're trying to do with the shot. The Italy one was interesting because I'd just been mindfucked the hole before where I had like 110 yards in, pulled a wedge and ended up with 20 feet. He's hit it in. I just thought he was dead, and he's holed a bunker shot, I've two putted and walked off one behind for the first. And I was like, what, like kind of what's happened here? So whereas, so I guess that was a kind of good response in Italy to make birdie and give myself a chance to go and play team. Whereas, but I felt like obviously Bahrain was, I'm either going to hit a great shot and have a great chance of birdie and hopefully win the tournament, or I'm going to pull it long left and try and two putt up the slope, and be which would have just been a poor shot, and it would have been potentially safe, but it's not going to kind of get it done. So yeah, it would definitely be in terms of the timing of it and the swing and the shot was definitely the best shot of it so far. Yeah.
Just on the, you talked afterwards, I think, about the Team Cup, and it's interesting because Sam and I, being huge DP World Tour advocates in general, we love the Team Cup. But obviously, from the outside, I think a lot of people would think, well, it's a bit of a waste of time. Some people might feel. Obviously, wasn't for you, and I'm just curious as to how seriously people took it. Like, how seriously did Justin Rose take it? How active was Luke Donald? And for you, did it give? I know you've sort of downplayed the Ryder Cup, and you're going to have to play very, very well, which is undeniable to get there this year. But how much did it sort of whet your appetite and give you a taste of what that experience could be like?
It massively surpassed my expectations. The Team Cup in terms of, I was like Luke asked me if I would could play after the DP World Final, and I wasn't expecting to get asked. We can speculate as to why, but I kind of just felt like, I'm probably not going to make that team. But he rang me and asked me, said, "I'd love you to play. You've had a really good year," and so yeah, I was like thinking, God, that'll be fantastic. But then obviously for me, it's like a completely new environment. I know I'm kind of good mates with probably 3 or 4 of the guys on that team, like pretty close with Jordan, and know Tommy, know Tyrrell, know them really well. Know Justin like vaguely, but you kind of wonder how you'll fit in and all those kind of stuff. But I absolutely loved it, like that environment, the way I think basically it's a dry run for all the staff who eventually become Ryder Cup Europe to facilitate and build an environment that's totally like player centered. How can we help you? How can you foster team spirit? All that kind of stuff. And I was amazed at how much buy-in there was from all the players. It completely took me along with it. And then, within that, you're getting exposed to stuff that we just never would get. Speaking to every night, there's a dinner or speaker, and they'll potentially challenge things you're currently doing, not directly, but they'll just talking about their experiences. Or they had someone who was an expert on the psychology of football penalty takers, which again was just like an interesting take and just makes you think differently. And yeah, having the chance to kind of be around that. Luke Donald's really involved, or certainly seemed it. Eduardo Molinari was out there. He had guys, following everyone, and he's big into the statistics side of the game. So they'd thought about who our potential partners would be. So we kind of had all that set. And yeah, I think I said it, I've said maybe after Bahrain, it definitely triggered something within me, kind of like a passion or an enjoyment of the game that I haven't felt for, to be honest, probably since I was an amateur, which I know is like a big thing. And people, you're right, they maybe tune into the Team Cup. There's not 30,000 people there and all that stuff, but it was just the, I guess how kind of stripped back it was. It was just you were going on a golf course and trying to beat 2 players or 1 player in your singles, and you were doing it and you're trying to get a point for your team. And then, you'd go back and you'd have Rosie would talk to you and he'd set themes for the day. And I had Jose Maria Altharbel fill up my water bottle one time, which I was like, what's going on here? Like these kind of pinch me moments. But yeah, so that's like honestly how I felt about it. I felt completely, kind of invigorated, and it challenged kind of a few things within what I do with my own game, but then also, definitely made me. I loved being in that environment, and being around, like having teammates, and so it was great. It was great fun, great week.
It wasn't Jose Maria wasn't spiking your water with something, was he? I mean, presumably he wanted you to lose.
He was nicely impartial, I think. So
Okay.
he was actually part of the European team staff, but I think it was there's a sort of collective buy-in, I think, in terms of trying to get to know all the players a little bit.
Of course, yeah. Well, obviously, I mean, you've playing very well the last couple of weeks. I mean, if you're looking, you already locked up a Masters invite, right?
Well,
nearly.
I need some more points according to the guru on Twitter. I've direct messaged him, and he's told me, no, you need to keep playing well. So,
okay. So you're just going to keep,
But yeah, that would be first agenda to try and get there. Would be pretty awesome. Yeah.
Have you? I mean, presumably you've not played Augusta. I'm guessing.
No, I haven't.
I mean, obviously not you haven't played in the Masters, but I wondered whether you might, someone might have got you on as a guest or something. But
I've had one chance. I have had an invite to go, but I actually have always said to myself, I will only go if I could go or the first time I'd go, I want to have that feeling.
Yeah.
So I actually declined it, which is probably stupid. But hopefully I can get an invite sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think Ben, you had a little nugget, didn't you, about Quail Hollow?
Well, Quail Hollow is a great golf course for you, obviously, and you're in the USPGA, right? And I figured you'd be quite good friends with Jordan Smith. He won at Green Eagle, and then he went to Quail Hollow, and he finished like 9th or something, right? So that should be a target, I think. Just beat Jordan.
Beat Jordan. Okay, I'll take that on. He's that would have been what, 2017 or 18 when he did that. Yeah. Wow, I do remember that. Yeah.
I mean, so at the time, you'd been what, on the Challenge Tour, I guess, or maybe was that a Challenge Tour year? But
yeah, I'd have been yo-yoing between them at that point. But like I definitely had a visit to Q School at the end of 2017 and 18 and 19, thinking about it. So yeah, I'd have been probably playing on a Q School category that year on the main tour.
I mean, I wanted to ask, if you don't mind. I mean, Sam and I talked about it after you won in Bahrain. It's like it can be difficult to talk about because obviously COVID was awful, and what you do, it's just golf, isn't it, right? But like, it felt like something changed for you between the shutdown in March or February, whenever it was, and then you come back out in the summer, and all of a sudden, like, we're watching these DP World Tour events for a lot of people, probably the first time they've seen you in the coverage. And you went on a really good run, and by the end of the year, you're nearly winning in Portugal, you're nearly winning in Italy. I think it was that year you nearly won in Dubai. Like, all of a sudden, you've gone from on the fringes of the DP World Tour, probably looking over your shoulder to keep your card, and now looking forward to things like the DP World Tour Championship. Was there something that changed in those sort of 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, I think I mean, like everyone, I think like you had to obviously take time off and do nothing. So, but I'm not very good at that. So I sort of made a plan, and I kind of spoke quite regularly with a sports psychologist called Carl Morris, who he's worked in golf a long time, and he was fantastic for me. He kind of just because I think he'd probably seen my career and the way it had gone. And yeah, I mean, like to that point, I felt like I was not doing as well as I could do. But it's important to know there'd be 200 people on tour who feel exactly the same way. So everyone probably feels like they're underachieving golf. And so you kind of got to be, as a golfer, you've got to be careful, because I always think you're sort of a couple of good rounds away from thinking you can win the Masters, and a couple of bad rounds away from wanting to pack it all in. So you're kind of on this knife edge if you're not careful. So he was great, because he encouraged me and challenged me to just say, when you go back to golf and have a chance to go back, like, what will you actually do different? Because basically, what you're doing doesn't work, in the nicest possible way. Like he said, you have all the opportunity in the world, to do this, but you serially shoot bad rounds when you shouldn't, or you're not able to sorry, just lost your not you're not able to you're not able to carry on. You kind of build your way into tournaments, and I think he just looked at my golf. It wasn't it didn't take a kind of rocket scientist, and so I did come back and do a lot of different stuff. I had some rules, that I kind of still live by now a little bit, just in terms of my practice. I used to hit loads and loads of balls on the range and be quite unstructured with that. And I went back to saying I had a period for 2020 where I only hit balls to warm up before a round of golf. I never hit balls in practice. The only time I hit balls in practice was if a coach was there and we were working on something, and he was literally there with guardrails, effectively making sure I couldn't go off and do something, some type of crazy new thing I wanted to do on my swing or the latest fad. So that was undoubtedly good for me, because I think it took probably my ball striking has always been, or was always quite good, but I would mess around with it a little bit and wouldn't really have necessarily a clear method for it. So being in a situation where I had to be on the range to warm up, and then I was playing more golf, playing a lot of competitive golf. I moved from Bath to into Surrey, where I live now, and was able to join a great golf club and play with great players. That was fantastic for me, just having the chance to play with tour players 2 or 3 times a week, as opposed to where I lived. It was a fantastic facility and a great spot, but I was doing a lot on my own. So inevitably I did end up headphones on down the corner of the range, hitting hundreds of balls. And so that was quite a big turning point in terms of how I kind of looked at my practice and structured it. And then, I think, human nature, you get good results from something and you think, right, I'll chase that. That works. I'll do more of it. And then you layer on a few more things. And that 2020, and I was a huge beneficiary of how COVID worked out, really, because to your point, I went from being a Q school category player who might get 15, 18 events a year to, you're actually going to play every event, because they were begun to put on a lot of events, slightly lower purses, but they were giving the opportunities to guys like me. So that as well was good, I guess, from a mental point of view, because I knew I had this run of golf on the tour to go and play that I'd really never had. I'd never had that security on the DP World Tour. So those kind of two things combined, I think really had a big influence, a big impact on me. And it was, that year was definitely huge for me in terms of my development as a player.
And obviously, what was it, 18 months, 2 years later, LIV Golf comes along. First of all, I'm curious to know what the atmosphere was like on the tour at the time, because, I don't know, there must have been a lot of range chat, for one thing.
But what, before the first LIV event, or
yeah, just as it was sort of the first event had been scheduled or whatever, and people were, I guess at the point, people were deciding whether to play in it and how that worked.
Yeah, I think it was obviously quite a strange scenario, because I think if it had all gone how I feel it was certainly trending, was you'd have had, I think LIV had a lot of the top 50 guys ready to commit to play, certainly some events, and then the kind of the Phil Mickelson stuff happened, and I think that changed things, because I think all of a sudden that the tour, the PGA Tour had to slightly maybe change their stance a little bit, and the players were then kind of had to pick a side, or players who were in one camp had to kind of semi-commit or fully commit to one side before the tour had even really hit a shot. So I guess I think from LIV's perspective, that they wanted to continue with the tour, and the project kind of vision they had for it. So they said we are gonna put 8 events on. First one's going to be in London. If you're I think it was top 250 in the world, you can apply to play. And if you're in the cutoff, you can come and have a game in London for $25 million, which as a pro golfer is certainly, like in DP World Tour ranks at the time, was an amazing opportunity. So that was kind of probably the extent of the range chatter. Was they couldn't believe someone was going to be paid $4 million for playing 3 rounds of golf at Centurion. But that's that's truthfully, I think, where a lot of people's heads and eyes were at that point in time. So that would have been what March, April 22, wasn't it, when they kind of announced these events were going to happen.
So I guess, well, 2 things. First, I'm trying to come to terms with the idea that if Phil Mickelson had just been quiet, we might not be where we are. Because I'm sure he positions himself sometimes as the great saviour of everybody's careers. But in terms of that money, I guess there are 2 questions that strike me, and I'll try not to get too serious here, as I want to do sometimes. But one is, were there any concerns for you personally about where the money came from? Like, was there a thought process where you have to think, right, ultimately Saudi Arabia are signing this check, do I want to do that? Was it, or was that not a thought that crossed your mind at all?
Oh, it's tricky questions. I mean, I have a family member who works in she works in foreign international development. She works within women's rights and a lot of these sort of things. It was so, yeah. I like to think I'm like a thoughtful person around this sort of stuff. Ultimately, I'd always come down on the job we do. We go everywhere. And if you sign up to be a golfer, certainly in the European sort of DP World Tour, you go all over the world, lots of different regions, lots of different laws, cultures, religions, and we play golf. And so I think you have to come to terms with trying to separate those 2 things a little bit. I don't think you can have a completely altruistic view of the world. And feel like I want to be like, I don't want to sound like I think fundamentally, if you're going to play professional golf, you have to separate those 2 things for your own kind of sense of being able to do the job. I mean, and if you really dug down into it, there's so many places we go that I would be uncomfortable around some of the laws or some of the kind of traditions. I think the week after, or 2 weeks after 2 weeks before the first LIV event in London, we were in America and in a state that was had just banned abortions, and was the Supreme Court was repealing Roe versus Wade, and you think, like, at that point, would I align myself with that? Probably not. That's the most developed country in the world and the biggest market for golf in the world. So I think where you choose to draw that line, it is difficult. And so to answer your question in a straight way, no, I didn't have a problem with it, because I really see that as kind of part of the territory in our job. I guess you kind of talk to the back teeth about all the different kind of scenarios in and around sport and kind of how people want to invest in it and kind of use it in a range of different ways. But like fundamentally, I think sport's overwhelmingly positive. It does shine a light on a lot of stuff. So yeah, I didn't really give it a second thought, to be honest, Ben. And for me, it was, I always kind of look at something in terms of selfishly, like, will it be good for my career and having an opportunity to play for that amount of money with those sort of players, and that's where I landed.
And just briefly, sorry, Sam, sorry. The only other question I had really on it was, and fair play, I mean, it's a comprehensive answer to a question many people wouldn't want to answer. golf sustainability. I'm guessing you've talked. I think you've said the word selfish a couple of times. It is the nature of being a golfer, right? Do you worry at all for what golf looks like when you're retired and presumably watching it as closely as the rest of us? Do you worry that if we're paying John Rahm $300 million just to show up, that in 20 years, if Saudi Arabia pull the plug, then what might be left?
Yes, I would, but I think that's extremely harsh to view that just from the live side. I think with what's happened in golf, I think you'd have to look at the whole picture. And it seems to me that golf currently is the only sport where there's been an investor who wants to literally put billions into the game, who until fairly recently couldn't even get a meeting. So I'd say, however you view that, the sport of golf is the great thing about golf at the moment is how fast it's growing from a participation standpoint, because it is growing from a participation standpoint. The viewing figures, I think, are up and down, and there's been some choppy waters. We've obviously lost or are coming to terms with the guy who's carried the game for 25, 30 years not being able to play as much. So that is obviously going to have an impact. But I think until there's some sort of proper alignment and unity, which I know almost all the players would love, if there was pathways were made clear. And I think, it's easy for me to say that, but as someone who played LIV, but doesn't anymore. And I know there's a lot of legal issues and all that kind of stuff in and around it. But I would love to see investment of that money used as constructively as possible for the betterment of all of golf. And I think it will, because my view is LIV and the PIF as an entity are committed to golf. I think it will continue to grow. And it would be nice to see kind of all the tours align or find a way for them to work constructively to help the people that want to watch LIV and enjoy LIV, and all the people that want to watch the traditional kind of formats of the game. It definitely needs that. They need to come together, and I'm sort of hoping that they will.
Yeah, well, on that, Laurie, I mean, out of interest, how would you see that looking? A lot's been talked about the framework agreement. Do you have any idea of what you think that it should look like?
It's difficult because you've got the PGA Tour, and that is a tremendous product to watch. It's got it's at the moment there's a kind of a slow play thing we're hearing again and again, but by and large I think it does a really good job. It's good, it's for the people who want to watch 4 rounds intense competition. It's a great thing to watch and enjoy. My thing with LIV, if I was kind of sort of speculating on it, is I really think there's a place for something like that in golf. I know there is, in terms of kind of having an event that people go to, and the way I sort of contrast those kind of different formats of the game, if you like, is when I'm playing a practice round in the Open, you'll be playing on Tuesday at 9 a.m, and there'll be 2 guys up there. They've got in at 7. They're up there in a grandstand with their lunchboxes. They're going to sit there all day and watch the players come through. They're purists, they are. That's what they enjoy. They'll sit in the same seat. They'll watch their players. They'll tick them off, come through. Those guys, that LIV's probably not for them. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you can disregard the need to kind of try and bring different people in to watch it, whether that's enticing them in with a great band or a good artist. The golf becomes kind of secondary to that. I kind of look at what darts has done and the revolution that's gone through. I mean, they've just nailed it. They've absolutely nailed it. The players have bought into the fact that there's going to be cheering and booing and all that kind of stuff going on as they're playing. I mean, I doubt probably 99% of the people at the darts are watching screens. They're having a laugh. They'll get excited if there's a 9-darter on. But really, it's about the event. It's about the day. But they've created an experience where people want to go and be part of it. And, the darts players now can make, a good career in life because they've all bought into that. And I would like to see golf have not a total revolution, but there's space for something like that in golf. It doesn't, I personally don't think we need 45 4-round events a year. I'd like to see something different. I'd like to see something tried. I like the TGL. I've watched a couple of those. I think they're great. I think that's a great little insight into something different. Again, it won't be for everyone, but that kind of interaction with fans, shorter formats, making it an event, getting to see a different side of the players and stuff, or the kind of process for how some of the best golfers in the world go about it. I think we should be and need to explore ways to tap into that. So that's kind of my view on both sides. I think taking a side it's got so tribal, or it certainly did a year ago. It was frankly ridiculous, and I've always felt like there's room for both here. And especially if you've got all sides working together to create how they'd schedule that. It could be amazing. It could be one of the best sports in the world to have that kind of different format. And there will be some players who say that's not for me. I'm not interested in that. That's absolutely fine. They let them do that. But I think you would get players interested, and I think you could create some really, really good events in and around that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a complicated one, isn't it, Laurie? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. I don't think anyone really knows how the sport is going to look in a year's time, or maybe even 6 months' time. So a lot could happen in the coming months, from what we're hearing.
And Sam's aiming high and trying to get Guy Kinnings on the podcast. So we want some. If we can get him on, maybe we can get a little bit of information on what's going on the inside.
Maybe you can put in a word with Guy, Laurie.
He'd be a great guest. He's a great guy.
Yeah. We're going to take things onto a slightly lighter note now, Laurie. You'll be pleased to know, with a few sort of quick fire questions before we go on to highest bidder, which I know you're looking forward to. Firstly, so keep these answers reasonably short, if you may. What would be your one solution to the issue of slow play?
A slow answer is just what we needed here.
Okay, shot clock. There you go.
Okay, give us one player. I mean, you've already said that Angel Ayora is going to be a superstar, but is there one other player on the DP World Tour, maybe outside the top, 100 in the world or whatever, who we should keep an eye on, who's really impressed you?
I think Sam Bairstow is going to be a really good player.
I like it, a lefty. I like where you're going with that, Laurie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good. Hits a long way. Good putter. It's a good combo, isn't it?
Seems like good head as well. Haven't played much golf, but I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, I like it. Can you give us your funniest story, or a funny story from life on tour?
I've just realised how enormously difficult that question is.
It is a hard one, isn't it?
As we see it now on the page.
But there's got to be something that jumps out there, Laurie, that something that's happened that you were just in stitches, and you're like, maybe you can't share it. I don't know.
Pretty funny when Pablo Larrazabal 3-putted, I suspect.
I've reckoned most of the funny stories are around some sort of travel incident, or you hear, but they'd all be a bit secondhand. You should have forewarned me on that. I'd have had to have a proper think. Let me come back to that. Something might come up.
I'm going to ask you about tennis now.
Okay.
So I gather you were really good at tennis, and that you may have played Andy Murray in the past. Is this true, or have I read something that's totally incorrect? How good were you? How much better was he?
So I played like a sort of national standard of tennis. I was 12 or 13. And I was part of a county team that played his county. He played number one for that respective county, east of Scotland, whatever. And I played number two for Avon. But the story has morphed into something larger because I think my mum said I'd played him. So you've got to back your mum. So it's turned into I played him, and then if I'm feeling really fruity, I'll say I beat him. But no, I was part of a team that played him, and he was wildly good. He just won the Orange Bowl at that point, so he was, which is kind of the biggest under 14 event in the tennis calendar. So he was so far ahead of everyone. But that I watched him as part of the same team. So yeah,
I mean, he's getting into his golf now. I could see the DP World Tour content team coming to ask you to do a hybrid sort of tennis golf challenge. I'd be backing Murray. I'll be honest, but
maybe it's hitting a tennis ball around a golf course. I can see that happening. But
I think there's probably some crossover. I think a lot of Henman's a really good golfer. I know that. I know a lot of tennis players turn their hand to golf. And
Federer and Nadal are both pretty decent, I believe. Even though Nadal's got a weird swing, but apparently he's soft scratch. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Are you ready, Laurie, to play highest bidder?
I'm ready.
Okay. So to be clear on the rules here, we're going to give you a topic, and you have to say how many you think you're going to get. So you've got to predict essentially how many you're going to answer correct. And then if you meet your prediction, and I encourage you to not be, you don't go too low, because that wouldn't be fun. I don't just say one. But,
well, I think, Sam, we're going to have to award a point per correct answer or something here, aren't we?
Okay,
otherwise...
that makes more sense, doesn't it? Okay, fine. A point per correct answer, but you have to tell us how many you think you're going to get. And the question is, Laurie, how many players currently ranked in the top 10 on the DP World Tour in strokes gained off the tee?
Oh.
Can you name? Currently ranked.
This season?
This season, yeah.
Okay. So they'll have had to play. Is there like a minimum round they have to play before you can?
There's not. They just stick them in there regardless. So
I don't think there's a minimum.
Not a minimum, but there's only one name on this list who has not played a lot, who will have only played in Australia.
Okay. I reckon I can probably do 4.
Okay.
I think for 4, Sam, we allow one incorrect answer, right?
Yeah, we'll allow one incorrect one, yeah. Okay.
4 of the top 10.
4 of the top 10.
4 of the top 10, yeah. Let's
okay,
go.
I'm going to say myself, because I reckon I am in that.
You're in there.
Johannes Veerman.
That's the one too, isn't it?
Yes, number 1.
Ayora.
Yes.
That's number 4, yeah, that's pretty good.
Richard Mansell, good driver.
No.
First incorrect answer.
Well,
Slightly surprised though. Yeah, he's not there.
Tends to be good driver. Okay.
So you got one chance left. There is a clue I can give. I know one of these names you've played with this year.
Well, it's Tyrrell, Fox, Tyrrell. I can be out there. Tyrrell.
I'm afraid it was Ivan Cantero who you played with.
He's a good driver. Yeah,
Does that mean that Laurie's come up one shy?
I'm afraid so. It's the Italian Open all over again, Laurie. I can't believe it.
It was such a strong start as well. I mean, straight off the bat, you named 3 of the top 4. But yeah, you could have had Nicholas Norgard was in there. Nikolai Højgaard was there. Minwoo Lee was the one that Ben gave you a little clue about earlier on. Then there was Freddie Schott, Ivan Cantero, as Ben mentioned, Christopher Raytan, and Dan Bradbury was last, which Ben and I were slightly surprised to see him in there. But yeah, it was a tough one. But
lasering his little fades, Dan Bradbury. He's good.
He probably hasn't missed a fairway, has he? So that's why
he's straight, isn't he? Yeah.
He's welcome in my home anytime.
Well, Laurie is also welcome in my home because he's joined me as someone who has failed at highest bidder, which, FYI, Laurie, I fail every week, and Ben is just romping home at the moment. So, yeah, it's good to have some company there.
My question for Ben then, quickly. How are you, when you're doing your not little write-ups, your write-ups every week, how much, where are you getting all your info from? You're good. You're very good, aren't you?
Oh, thanks, Laurie. That's really kind. Yeah, it depends what you mean. Like stats wise, I use Data Golf and a website called Tour Tips and a few other little ones. But the rest of it just by watching and looking at every single shot hit around the world at all times, I suppose, is the best answer. Yeah, we do like golf, don't we, Sam?
We do. We watch a
Great
lot of
sport.
golf between us, I think.
We do watch a lot of golf between us. Although I've not watched the TGL yet, I need to put that right because that's two people on this podcast who've now told me it's good. So I need to do that.
Do you,
Yeah.
you don't, you're not a TGL guy fundamentally?
No, it's just time. I don't want to. I got two kids. One of them's a year old. I've not found the time yet. But when I find the time, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it.
I wonder if Ben, I don't know if you're the same with this. You might not be, but for me, I have to watch with any sport. I have to watch live, otherwise it's done. Like I never watch anything on catch up because I just feel like I've missed the moment. So the problem we have obviously with TGL in this country, Laurie, is that obviously most of the matches are played pretty late at night. So I did actually stay up and watch one, but it meant staying up to like 2 a.m., which is kind of hard to do on a regular basis.
You looked awful that Monday. You really did. Far be it from me to say, but you did. You look like a man who'd stayed up and watched TGL.
Well, that wasn't actually that night, Ben, because TGL is on a Monday or Tuesday night, so you wouldn't have seen me. That was when I'd stayed up to watch the Sony Open.
Arguably worse. Yeah, fair enough.
Die hard Jupiter Lynx fan, are you? Or, yeah.
Laurie, I'm a diehard LAGC fan because you've got the English connection in there, obviously Justin and Tommy, and Thigala, who I don't know if you've met Thigala, but he's a lovely man. I like him a lot.
Who do I support again, Sam?
You
Bay. Is it
you
the
support the Bay GC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we've got to wrap up anyway, because embarrassingly, as Laurie, you might know, this is like episode 6 of our brand new podcast, and as yet, we remain on the free package where we get a maximum 1 hour an episode. So that's we're about 3 minutes short. So again, Sam expertly steered because you got us to about the hour.
Sling me off.
We did. I mean, we had many more questions, Laurie, that we didn't ask you, but you did a good job at answering what we did give you. So thank you very much for your time. It was hugely appreciated, and a great first guest, first sliced.